Mitch Arabko wrote in, and this is an interesting question. He asks about a particular person, but I want to talk about it a little bit wider. He says, hey guys, this message is specifically for Colin. We can all talk about this though. Just curious about your thoughts of Greg Miller, my old co-host back in the day, hosting E3 this year. I was a massive fan of Podcast Beyond since you started, but fell off for some reason when you guys started Kind of Funny Games. I heard the news that you were starting your own company and hopped back onto the Colin train and haven't looked back. Choo choo. I guess is that the break? I think that would be the choo choo. I guess I'm mostly just curious about your guys' current relationship, as I wasn't following anything that happened during the split. I know it's a bit of a personal question, so I don't want to get into any of that. It doesn't matter. I feel like something Mitch asks is really interesting. Our thoughts on people in the industry crossing over. And I was thinking about this a lot this week because I saw Greg and other people are hosting E3 and doing all this, and this is not anything new. But I am personally of the mind that you can't, it's pretty weird to have it both ways. I think Greg is maybe one of the only people that is capable of doing it because he has that kind of respect. But I don't think you can be necessarily a critic and then work in the industry at the same time. I don't think whether or not you think it does, I think it obviously paints your opinions. It narrows in your ability to criticize. And I would get concerned about that. And I have a little bit of experience with that because when we started Kind of Funny, we would actually take a lot of these hosting gigs and I hated doing them. And everyone knew that I hated doing them internally. We did it because we were afraid we didn't have any money, which wasn't a problem after a while. But we would go to host the GameStop Expo, but I would talk about shit about GameStop constantly. And it felt like they didn't ask me not to, but it felt like nonsense. It's like, okay, I talk about shit about GameStop rather all the time. Now I'm going to host GameStop's thing this week. And then we're going to go back and I'm going to talk shit about GameStop again.
Yeah,
and
it feels hypocritical.
Exactly. So yeah, do you feel like you can have it both ways, Chris? Because I feel like if someone is hosting E3 or someone is hosting Gamescom, hosting Comic-Con, whatever the case might be, I don't know that you can really trust what they say. There are different tendrils, and I'm speaking from experience. It's harder to shut that stuff off in your mind, even if you want to, than you think. And I admit those things when they happen to me. I said on Twitter last year, or I said it on the show, that I was afraid to be too critical on Twitter about The Last of Us Part 2 because I didn't want to hurt Neil Druckmann's feelings, who's a friend of mine. It didn't stop me from saying what I needed to say about the game, positive and negative. I knew that wasn't the appropriate venue for it. What do you think? I mean, do you have any thoughts about this, Chris?
You need a very specific type of personality to do that. I feel like you got to be like Ricky Gervais, you know, at the Golden Globes to really get away with doing something like that. You know, like the way that he just like went up on stage and just roasted everybody as he awarded them. Like, I think that's kind of how you have to do it. I don't know if the industry would really allow for something like that, but it strikes me as like that's the type of person that you need. Somebody who, like, if somebody was going to host, they would have to host purely as authentically as themselves, which is just not how that works. Those are press junkets, essentially. These are meant to ultimately to advertise. And I don't know if any company would be open to just, especially with how many studios and publishers have just pulled some really shady shit and everybody knows about it. I don't know if that's even an avenue that's even possible. So no, I don't think that you can really, I don't think you can be a particularly well-respected critic and host.
Yeah.
I think that's, it takes a very special kind of person to do that. And even if you could have that person, the industry, I don't think would even be open to that person anyway.
It's interesting, Dustin, because I think Chris is absolutely right. You're nailing it this week, Chris. You're bringing up some salience. I'll tell you what, boy.
Whoa.
But yeah, it's a good point. It's hard, Dustin, to split the difference. It's not a commentary on the people who do it. They're chasing the paper and all of that, and I appreciate that. I do too. But I think that there does come a point where it's like, well, again, can you really believe it? Even if they believe it, it's still somehow subconsciously, I think, tainted. And it reminds me a little bit, you know who this reminds me of? I mean, it's a little bit of a non sequitur, but it reminds me a little bit of Joel McHale, who I'm a big fan of. When Joel McHale hosted The Soup, it gave him incredible credibility because he was just making fun of everyone. And he was outside. It was funny. When he joined Community, he lost his gravitas as far as I was concerned. That show wasn't as funny anymore. and all that because he was on the inside. You can't have it both ways, you know? So am I wrong?
No, that seems right. This is such a difficult and hairy situation, I think, for a lot of reasons. And it's easy to get weighed down in particular wording, I think. And I think sometimes the wording is important. Like, is it appropriate if you have a brand or some kind of deal? If you're on a publisher's payroll at the end of the day, maybe it's not consistent. Maybe it's a one-time check they sent you. I can't see any reality where it's appropriate where you use the word review and one of their products in the same thing. Like, and I've seen a lot of people do that, and I think that's odd. Like, you got to wonder, like, where does review and like discussion and things like that, like what lines do we draw? And as much as I believe that I think the Game Awards is better than ever, and I think that Jeff Keighley is doing a good job in most ways, if you look at a lot of the people that are voting in those awards, they have a lot of branding deals or sponsorships, hosting gigs, whatever, with those companies.
Indeed. I voted for Game Awards the same year that I was sponsored by Square Enix and PlayStation and other things that kind of funny. And yeah, it is weird. That people don't care is weirder, though.
Well, I think that just people don't even think about the judges. They don't go to the Game Awards website and see who are the people that are actually voting on these things. And so I'm not conspiratorial about this, but there's a possibility that a company could say, okay, who do we want to work with to promote these products? Even though they say that they're non-biased, maybe at the end of the day, we choose to work with these people who, maybe vote in these awards or whatever, or something like that.
It could be.
It's like maybe like these like micro, like pushing one direction or the other. Like you said, Colin, like as much as you are unbiased about The Last of Us, or you try to be unbiased about The Last of Us Part 2, and I think you did the appropriate thing. You were upfront with everybody. I am friends with Neil Druckmann. My opinion may be tainted, or whatever word you want to use, by that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it stopped me certainly from saying quips on Twitter. It did. And that's why I admitted it. I was like, I knew it, and I admitted it.
So if you're making $20,000 or more, because some of these brand deals can be a fuck ton of money.
Hell yeah, they are. I'll tell you all about that. Yeah.
It doesn't, you can try to be unbiased, but when the bottom line of your company depends on these deals, it's a problem. I'm sorry. Like, I mean no disrespect to people. I just don't. I think it is ethically wrong.
Yeah,
it creates inauthenticity, because even if you did, if you had friends who worked on a game or whatever, or like if you were friends with the person who directed it, that might stop you from saying anything like particularly negative on Twitter. But it might also, in some cases, might lead to an overcorrection where like maybe you're even harsher on the game than you otherwise would be because you feel like you have to make up for the fact that you're friends with these people. I've seen that happen too, and it's just the nature. It's just human nature to just not want to be a dick to people that you're familiar with and people that you get along with. And, criticism can be uncomfortable. Like it's uncomfortable to criticize the people that you consider friends or consider friendly. So taking a hosting gig, I don't think it's on the scale of ethically wrong. It's not that big of a deal.
I guess the question for me though, Chris, is that sure, a hosting gig, I wouldn't say, like you said, it's low on the scale. But if that's a major source of revenue for your company to do this repeatedly, or, and I'm not calling out anyone specifically at all, because a lot of people have all kinds of, and it's not just hosting, different kind of branding deals and stuff like that.
Yeah, ambassadorships and whatnot.
Right. If that's the backbone of how you survive, then that is going to impact things.
Of course. I'm sorry.
We're very blessed by our audience that we don't need to do that kind of thing. So I it's one of those things too that I'm just like, okay, so there's the companies out there aren't able to generate their income like we do. You know, it's not easy. It's I don't want to say our success is a fluke. I don't think that, but it's rare. So
Definitely.
I don't know what the option is then for those companies or those critics to survive. So
Yeah,
it's a weird situation.
I mean, I'll give you insight. I mean, this was a long time ago, but when I was there, I think I've told this story, but 2K hired us to do a 5-minute video for Civilization 5. They wanted me to go to Baltimore, which I think is where Fair Access is, or Maryland, and host this video. I refused to do it. I didn't want to do it. So Greg ended up doing it instead because I remember saying at the time, I didn't leave IGN to do this shit. And we made $25,000 doing that. It took literally 2 seconds. I mean, this is the kind of money that's being thrown around. So Dustin's right. And I feel like I would never want to be in that space again. It's too much. Not dealing with publishers is so nice. I saw Maddie actually tweeting about this the other day, about how stressful it is that he deals with publishers and then some of them don't answer and stuff and they don't know where you stand. And I'm like, the best way to deal with that is just not to deal with them. I haven't even emailed with a publisher in over 2 years for any reason at all. And our show is bigger than ever. So I think people think they need that kind of access. And I think a lot of, frankly, less interesting people that are still starting out need that kind of access. But for older folks that have been in the industry for a while, I think you either hang around by the market or you go. And I get really uncomfortable when it's like, I'm a Cyberpunk ambassador and I'm an Xbox ambassador. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And why is it in your Twitter profile? You know, like, so I agree with you. We're like sponsored by Astro Headset and all of this. And I'm like, well, we do ads, but I don't know. I feel like it creates so many different tendrils of people that you're in some way beholden to. And I wouldn't want to be in that situation. Square Enix used to sponsor our Kind of Funny party every year. And it didn't affect me, but I could see how, like, if you're a human, it just sinks in your subconscious in some way. I'm glad that I'm outside of that. Like, that's the thing that I am most glad about, is that the audience is so kind to us that we're able to succeed, frankly, far above and beyond what I was doing at Kind of Funny without any of that. So thank you.